Good. All right. Hi, everyone. This is Kunika Lee, Treasurer of the Iowa Student Personnel Association. We are starting our second virtual call. Yay! We have May and Wyett here, who's going to be discussing social media with us and how to incorporate it with us in terms of our own personal lives, but also for our departments. So if you join us, utilize the chat box to answer any questions. We will be tweeting as well, so we can make sure to get your messages to her as well too. So welcome. Yay.
Hi everyone, it's so great to be here. My name is Megan Wyett. I'm the Director of Student Conduct and Leadership at SUNY Polytechnic Institute in Utica, New York, up here in the great state of New York. And we have hardly any snow on the ground, which is very odd for us. I think you all have more snow than we do. So we are jealous of Iowa for two reasons: the caucuses that just happened and your snow. So we've all been looking on from afar. I'm excited to do this presentation for you today. I think that making social media work for you is basically the essentials of why I wanted to do this, because we can get so out of hand with social media and making it too big, and we get too broad, and we get boiled down by all of the different platforms and how to do this and how to do that, when really the essence of it is about connection, about engaging with our students, our campus stakeholders, and using it for us in the ways that we want to use it. And so I don't want you to, as this video is really more for beginners, those who are just getting started with social media, I don't want you to feel overwhelmed. You're not alone. There are so many people out there who are not on social media, who have kind of yet to adopt it with a lot of hesitations. And so we're going to work through some of those hesitations today, and hopefully by the end of it, you're like, all right, I'll sign up for at least one platform. So that's your challenge at the end of it, is to sign up for at least one platform, or if you're already on one, to find a new one. So I'm going to start off with 5 things to consider for making social media work for you as a professional. I think that it's so important that you start out with using social media. In some ways, you have that personal lens, right? So when I first got started with social media, it probably was MySpace back in the day for some of you. And then Facebook got introduced. And so for me, my progression is Facebook is the stuff that I would tweet out to my friends and family. So it's, or I should say tweet, but I use the word tweet. But I would post out to my friends and family on Facebook. So it's probably my day-to-day stuff. It's how I'm feeling, what's going on, more pictures about my personal life, and so forth. Students on that page are students who have graduated from an institution after they've left that I'm currently working at, or once I've left the institution, then I would allow friend requests from students at previous institutions. So virtually I'm not friends with any current student at the institutions that I work at. And that's a personal choice. That's something that you have to decide for yourself and with your supervisor. Your campus may even have guidelines on that about your interactions and being friends or connected with students on social media. And so then for me, I go from Facebook, and then there's Twitter. So Twitter for me is the in-between. So you're going to see me tweet about student affairs, higher education, and football. Maybe during the Oscars or the Emmys or the Grammys or something I might be watching on TV. I'm a big Downton Abbey fan. So you might see a little bit of my personal side, but you're really going to see heavily in student affairs, higher education, especially during conference seasons and when I'm attending professional development. It's a way for me to share information and take notes eventually as well. So then from Twitter, I progress probably more into the LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is strictly professional. So you're going to see everything professional on there. So I would always connect with a student on LinkedIn as a current student. I would say, yeah, look for me on Twitter or for LinkedIn. I may not follow you back on Twitter, but I would definitely follow, or you can follow me. I may not follow you back, but you can at least engage in that forum. I follow a lot of our campus clubs and organizations on Twitter as well, so I can see what they're doing, retweet stuff, comment, encourage them. Hey, congratulations, CAB, on your great program, things like that. So those are ways that I can engage with students on Twitter. LinkedIn, the same way. I might congratulate a student on getting a job that we're connected, or if I know they're looking for an internship and I see something, I might connect with them on that level. I might look at our page at Student See to see, well, what do they see about my role? What is my role with student conduct and leadership? Is that even part of LinkedIn? It may not be, but I'm aware of where students gain their information from as well. LinkedIn has 2 parts. LinkedIn is divided sort of into where we have our resume and our personal pages, and then college and universities have a whole new section now as well that's actually really sophisticated and a really great resource that hopefully your institutions are using. Probably your marketing or your admissions office would be using that LinkedIn for the college setting. And then there's Instagram, YouTube, all of those, but I use those interchangeably. But my progression is Facebook personal, Twitter is the mix, and then LinkedIn is completely professional. So you can kind of see where I allow the connection with students and so forth. The first thing that I want to show you that I think is imperative as we talk about how social media is used for professionals, I'm going to actually screen share with you if I can figure it out. I think we practiced it before, is the competencies for ACPA NASPA. And I think this is important to share because you should see what our standards are for when it comes to social media. So does that look right? Do you see it? All right. All right. So good. So here you have the web address if you're looking for it. But you can also see, I'm going to scroll here. We added technology in the latest round of these competencies. This is updated in 2005 after much conversation about the need to incorporate a few more competency areas. I'm going to quickly scroll. Excuse me for that while we get through this. So I'm just going to go to the overview section. This obviously is a lot more detailed, but here you can just sort of see what the description is and how it relates to professional development. If you're starting to incorporate social media into your work and into your professional development, I would highly encourage you to look at these competencies and think about how you can work with your supervisor or your department as an office development about how technology is incorporated into that. If you have performance management plans that you have to do for HR or you have to set goals for yourself, I would encourage you to look at these to help set those. If you've never seen these before, they're broken down into what they call foundational outcomes, intermediate, and advanced. And so there's different things for each of those that you could look at as ways to say, okay, if I want to meet this competency when it comes to the beginning role, I'm trying to get to technology, I promise. If you want to be foundational, here are the things that you should demonstrate in your work for outcomes. And so like right here, it just talks about modeling appropriate usage, engaging, this is what I probably would focus on, is engaging in these conversations in a digital learning environment. And that's what we're doing here today. You're engaging in a digital learning environment. And this is what you can be doing with your students as well, is that we know that they're on digital spaces. So we know they're taking courses online. We know that there's an increase in social media use on our campuses. And so you should be familiar with this information. Ray Junko, who's an author of a really great book for student professionals on engaging in social media in the higher education setting, says that student affairs professionals have an opportunity and an obligation to help students learn how to be good online citizens. And so it's important as professionals that you have just, even if you're not using social media, that you have a knowledge base to know what students are doing on social media, how are they communicating, how they're engaging, and what's that doing to their reputation online. What does that look like for their digital footprint? So if you work in career services, how are you talking to them about their brand and their image online as they prepare for jobs? Maybe it's current students and how what they say on social media can be used as a violation of your student code of conduct. Maybe looking at how what they say, their words have meanings, and so direct threats or things that could be violations of the residence halls might be on social media. So how are we helping our students to understand that social media is not, as it used to be said, right? It's not written in pencil, it's written in pen, that it sticks, that it stays. What is their digital footprint? And I think you being a good information source for that, even if you don't want to use it, but at least talking about it and incorporating it into your office's mission or outcomes or goals or how you're communicating with students is vastly important. So we are, good, we're making sure all the screens work. So I talked about professional competencies. We can get that out to you, or you can just type in ACPA NASPA competencies into Google. It'll pop right up for you. And make sure you pick some of those out. And as you think about how do I apply this, look at it from a competency standpoint. The next thing I would tell you to do from a personal standpoint is look at 1 to 3 platforms that you're going to become well versed in. So again, this might just to give you the knowledge and where students are at. So a lot of students, I'm going to focus on platforms that students are using where you can be connected with them. I'm not going to talk about apps like Tinder, Whisper, where apps are being used for more like relationships, where colleges and universities probably would not be connected with an individual. There is a plethora of those kind of applications. I'm going to stick with social media platforms that have a direct connection to the campus culture and things that you could be using to know about and to learn about, but also ways that you can be promoted in your office. So we're looking at things like maybe you pick out, obviously, Facebook. There is a big, I wouldn't say debate. I would say that each person has their own take on, is Facebook still relevant? And I would say Facebook is still relevant, and here's why. Facebook is still being used by many populations of students coming to our campus: non-traditional learners, adult learners, online learners, stakeholders such as parents and guardians and families. They're using Facebook. So while the typical 18 to 22-year-old might say Facebook is the last thing they check, they're still checking it. They're still connected on Facebook, and other stakeholders on your campus are still connected. Alumni are certainly going to be on Facebook. So looking at your populations could be impactful. For you, how can you make Facebook work for you? So professional development, here are two things. One is there's a student affairs groups out there online. So you could join some of those Facebook groups. They're full of like 18,000 people, I think, or some of them. So you've got to be really cautious about how much you put out there, what you say, how you respond, if that's something that you're concerned about. There's actually some data and research being taken by some people at Kansas University about those social media groups for student affairs and how the perception of those are when it comes to job search practices, and when it comes to people's impressions of the brand they're putting out there from these groups. Because there are some pretty sensitive topics that are discussed. There's lots of debates that happen, but educational in nature. Definitely something where I learn something from every day when I look at those posts. So that's one way where Facebook could work for you as a professional. I think two is even your ISPA group, and being a part of that and being connected and knowing what's happening for professional development within your state. The groups feature of Facebook is something that I spend a lot of time talking about. I think the groups feature is still really unique to Facebook in that you don't have to be friends with people to be in a group. So you could create a group for a first-year seminar class. You could create a group for Iowa student affairs professionals in conduct. You could create a variety of groups. I even encourage families, if they want to still stay connected with their child during college, is to set up and they're not Facebook friends anymore. Is to create a family group where people can post photos. They can, how you doing? They can engage on social media. They can still feel like they're sharing and part of it, but they're not on their actual social media. So they're able to even create a little group within that for themselves. So there's ways where I even tell students, for academic reasons, groups are still really important, because at midnight, what are you going to be doing? Are you going to be checking your Blackboard or your Facebook, where there's a pop-up that says someone has a question about a test, and where's your most likely answer going to come? Your professor won't be up at midnight checking email, but someone in your group with your class might be and can help you with that assignment at midnight. So again, Facebook groups, I believe, are still relevant. Then you could look at maybe picking, so there's Twitter. We have the hashtag going today. You can connect on with essay pros and essay grads through all of the different means of Twitter. I think it's the best way, to connect with professionals, to gain insight, to ask questions, to create dialogue as well. It's where we met as well, and so I'm so happy about that, and I had the opportunity to speak to all of you because of our connection on social media. I think it started on Twitter, and then it grew to Facebook, and so there's some overlap there eventually, but I've met people through webinars to Twitter to then presenting with them at national conferences, and so there's a plethora of things that you can do from connecting on Twitter for professional development. The thing that's great about Twitter is that you can do a search bar for your institution, for a student club or group, a fraternity or Greek letter organization, and you could just see what's being promoted or what's being talked about with that hashtag or those words. So it also becomes a research tool for you, or an assessment tool, if you will, about, well, I wanted to see what my students are tweeting about the residence halls. So, Iowa State residence halls, you can just type that in and see what comes up. And you're able just to see the dialogue, see where people have commented. So you're out, I would say you're lurking from the behind with all the chats, but you don't have to be engaging with that. So you can have an account and still see what's sort of being the buzz that's being talked about. That would be Twitter. Then you go into Instagram. It's all the photos. What a great way to share things for yourselves. I think the biggest thing you can do as a professional on Twitter is just show the human side of yourself. So it's okay to post some pictures of you at events or you at, running and showing your, what you do in your spare time. It helps students who are following you to see that you are human, that you have a life, that you also have to take care of yourself. And so you're role modeling through social media as well. And that can be maybe an overwhelming thought for some people, but deep down, by them showing that you're taking good self-care or doing things for your self-care models that for students who might be following you. So that's one way with you can just picking some different platforms. I mean, I could go on for YouTube, LinkedIn, let's see what I forgot. Probably those are the main ones that people most likely are on. So Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. Can you think of anything else? I can't think that.
Vine, maybe?
Yeah, Vine would be one for the videos and the pictures. Oh my gosh, the big one. So we had a question come in from Amanda. One of the ones that she asked me was about Snapchat, or the question was, are there any new social media platforms beyond the radar? And I would say Snapchat is probably the one where a year ago we were sort of curious about, oh no, this app, I don't like it, it's not good, students are not using it for, it was sort of a private app. They were showing pictures that would disappear within 10 seconds. So there was some negativity. There was probably a lot of more questionable things that might have been shared or happening that and so for a while, student professionals were sort of leery of Snapchat. I would say 6 to 8 months ago, that changed dramatically when Snapchat became one of the top apps that students are starting to use on the college campus for promotion of events. If you're interested in Snapchat, I think looking at Michigan University, they actually had Snapchat for over a year at this point. The first university related to be using Snapchat to connect with students. A lot of athletic departments use Snapchat to connect with students to share their advertising. So you can sort of just see that, that would be the one I would highlight as probably the newest one that's hitting campuses. It's changing a lot, but just like, we didn't think Snapchat would be something. Yik Yak would be the one that a lot of people talk about as well, and they hear more of the negative right now. But I would tell you that actually Yik Yak is probably another good assessment tool. So if you're unfamiliar with Yik Yak is an anonymous posting site. It's all through a phone. It can't be through the computer. Some things are changing. They certainly are an app that is worth watching to see how they change and develop. Currently, it's any snap or any yaks, they call them, within 10-mile radius of that point. And so you have to consider that when it's not just a controlled campus environment. So you might have community members, high school students who are available to yak on that account. But when you look at that, the Yik Yak, you'll be able to kind of see what the trend is. What are students upset about at the moment? Typically for us, it's food in the dining hall or Wi-Fi that's not working in the residence halls. So it gives you a quick snapshot of the campus conversation. It might show you, students are like, well, University Police was in a residence hall last night. Oh, so it might share information that's true or not true, but it also gives you a talking point for your staff meeting in the morning to say, I saw this on Yik Yak. Does anyone know what's going on with this or what this means? They're really great about working with, you probably have seen lots of reports, especially if you look on InsideHigherEd.com and you type in Yik Yak as another resource. They have lots of articles about how college campuses have started to use Yik Yak as a way to promote campus programs, to promote resources. They've had RAs, faculty members, staff members actually yak back at someone's, like if they had a negative, or we're talking about how they had, suicidal thoughts, they would actually yak back the counselor's like hotline number, and they would sort of give out resources in that way. So I would not shy away from Yik Yak. I think there's some potentials there, and people have been seeing that for the last year, some potentials with Yik Yak in meeting students. And actually, if you want to see where they're at, there you go. That's the kind of a quick assessment of your campus at the moment. So those would be the main platforms that I would think to choose. And go back to my point, picking 1 to 3 of those. That's it. If you get more developed and you get, more comfortable with each of those, then you can increase them. But even for someone who likes to talk about this topic, I am really on like 3 of those on a daily basis. On my YouTube channel, I don't use a whole lot unless I'm recording something like this. Instagram for me is something I just didn't get into. I'm not really into the whole picture thing. I take a lot of pictures, but I just haven't got into Instagram. But that doesn't mean that I don't follow our school's accounts, and I encourage you to use Instagram. It's particularly for events, and it's a great poster. You can make some great advertisements for that. But, for me, it's really, I'm old school. I'm Facebook, I'm Twitter, I'm LinkedIn, and that's where I spend a lot of my time. And as a conduct officer, I've taken YICAC off my phone. When I was in residence life, YICAC was on my phone. As a conduct officer, I just choose not to sort of cloud, if you will, any judgment or anything that I might impact my work. So I've taken it off and I don't follow it or check it, but I certainly have in the past. So I have not gotten to Snapchat, and so you will not see my Snapchat account yet. Maybe by ACPA in Montreal, maybe I'll get on it by then. But I've resisted as well. So I guess I would say that even I've resisted some stuff. And so some of you have hesitations, natural, totally, that is how it is. And for me, it's just my comfort level and where I want to be and how I use social media for me, how I make work for myself and my professional life, my personal life, and then my job. So let me move on a little bit to managing your digital footprint. I think this is really important for you to be doing, for those of you who have hesitations or for those that are helping students to talk about it with your, in your meetings with students or in programs. You could actually do, if you're in residence life, you could do like a Google search of residence life bulletin boards on social media, and you'll get some fantastic examples of social media boards that are put together to help talk about this and to help encourage some of the digital footprints and that, the thinking before you post it, right? So how's it going to make somebody feel, all of those things before you post it. So it's important that we're talking about the digital footprint. And the easiest way to do that, if you haven't done it before or lately, is to do a Google search of yourself. So it's really just, typing in your name into Google, quotation marks around your name. So as we all know, the old school searching methods that we've used forever. And then if you have a common name or you're not finding much, take a resume. So if I, as an employer, have your resume in front of me, what indicators could I put into a search bar that would get me more information? So it might be my name and my address, like my hometown. It might be the colleges that I've worked at previously. So I might do Megan Wyett, Black Hills State University in South Dakota. You're going to get a lot of my stuff from when I was a student. That's still pretty much up there. And you're going to see all of that. And so do the Google search of yourself and kind of, have an understanding of your own digital footprint and what's out there. I think a lot of people wonder, how can I get something off of there? I have students ask me all the time in presentations, like, what can I get removed? And unfortunately, you can't. Google does have, you can look on their site, they will allow for stuff that has your social security number, bank information, things that are sexual in nature, they will take those things off. Otherwise, that's about the only things that Google will actively remove for you. So it's mainly mostly talking with students about going forward, how do you protect that and control that environment of what's being posted out there about you. In particular, I tell students all the time, you're at a party, it's socially uncool to be like, dude, where are you putting that photo? But is it worse for a supervisor or a potential employer to see that photo later on when you could have stopped it in the moment and said, I don't want that posted or tagged with you in that photo, those kind of things. One thing that I started to do recently too with the Google search is I'm looking at my images. I'm looking at more than just that main site that comes up, what documents are out there with my name on it, just so I'm aware, so I can speak to that. Should there be something I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that was going to show up there. I think about like my YouTube channel on like Hangouts that were not supposed to be recorded, and all of a sudden they're there, and I'm like, oh, delete, at least I can get it off of there somehow. But I will be honest, and I leave this up for students to see, just so they can see that even I and myself can be vulnerable and be not have the best footprint. So I had one of the beta accounts for Pinterest many years ago when Pinterest first came out. And my nickname was my sorority nickname. And that's all I will say because this is recorded. And so my nickname is not necessarily inappropriate, but it's not maybe something I want attached to my name. But my Pinterest account comes up when you do a Google search of my name. Now, everyone probably right now is like searching Megan Wyett. And I leave it up there to show that I did not realize that was going to come up there. One, when I created the account and the name, I didn't think it would ever be searchable. We weren't thinking about this 5-8 years ago. Two, that even me, someone who goes out and speaks about branding and social media to students, I'm susceptible to this as well. And so if this isn't just don't do, learn from me as well that these things can happen. And it's just about changing them and being aware of it. And so I think that, that's a really important thing with your digital footprint with your students and for yourself to be looking at. And so hopefully now you all are Googling yourselves and checking out what kind of photos people see and all of that. So that's my last tip for you when it comes to the 5 things to consider making social media work for you as a professional. And then we'll get into some more concrete ideas as your department. Is I did have Amanda ask the question of, what do you do if students find your personal page and message you? So how do you have that conversation about splitting the difference between work and personal? So the first thing is, I think you set the boundary really clear. If a student messages you on Facebook that, please don't message me here, this is something I keep personal or private. Facebook is really great in that you have to accept most messages now in that other folder that comes up on Facebook. Is it someone you're not connected with? You have to accept it first. So I would ignore it and then maybe have an in-person conversation with that student to say, I got your message, but I do keep Facebook very personal and I don't want to bring my work into that. That would be my first strategy, is just the direct line. Indirect, might be the email that just says, I saw your message. I want to respond in a professional manner through my professional account, my email account that, this is how I want to communicate with you and have a conversation about why that is. And maybe tell them at what point can we become friends on through Facebook or through social media, if that's something that they're asking about. And the other thing I would say is that, if and when you do get connected with students, is I always make them aware that the minute I see something that I have that is subject or that I'm questionable, I will defriend you right away, and I will have a personal conversation with you in person as to why I did that. And so again, it's very rare that happens, but I've had, people have saw students' statuses that talked about depression, mental health issues, and they have to understand that being connected with you means that you're still a campus authority. You still have to act in some of those ways where you have to report certain things or check into their well-being. That you can't just ignore it outside of the workplace. When you leave campus, you're still connected. And so I think, Amanda, it's personal choice in a lot of ways. You have to make that for you. 2, it's about setting clear boundaries and letting your students know why that is, and that they usually are pretty understanding. And then 2 and 3, I would say, if you are connected with your students because maybe it's a programming board or RHA, that you're doing it in a group manner or a Twitter account where it's more, you don't have to be friends to be connected. And so you can connect in that way. That way you can see part of the, you can be on a page together, a group together, you can post events, all of those things, but they're not able to see your personal information. I would also say that if you're thinking about being more familiar with social media, is looking at your account settings on those accounts that you're going to be using and ones that you use personally. So Facebook, what can you make private, what can you not make private? You can see it in their settings. There's a way that you can actually see what people see, and then there's categories based on who those people are. So people you're friends with, what do they see? People you're not friends, what do they see? And some, so forth and so on. And so look at that as a way to kind of see what people are looking at. It might be that your photos are being shared and you're like, oh, I didn't know they had access to all these photos. And so just being smart about the settings goes back to that accountability and responsibility that you're role modeling for your students as well. Can you think of anything else that you would share under personal usage of social media?
I would say for me, I know that I allow students to message me on my Facebook. I don't let all of them add me unless we have that close relationship. But I know that's for everybody. So as Megan mentioned, it's really up to your comfort level and kind of what you want to do. I set pretty clear boundaries in my professional relationship, and I also extend those, as Megan mentioned, to social media as well. But I find it, at least in my role in residence life, a lot of times with social media, it's really easier to have students respond quickly via them doing an email. And so for a lot of it, it's mostly emergency situations, or they want to have conversations regarding a more kind of lengthier process. Maybe it's not with my office, but they want to kind of know what's going on.
Yeah. And I would say, as we transition into your department stuff, I would say the first thing I would do is look at what your social media policies are. And if you don't, I would start that conversation. In particular, if you're going to start using social media for your department or your office, there's got to be someone on campus that's doing some social media. And so working with them to figure out, is there a policy in place? If not, let's get one created. What's in that? And that might include sort of what's allowed and what's not allowed. You'll see a lot of people on their description say, like, my tweets are my own. Meaning that I don't represent the institution or the university. And so you can put that up there if you want, but some schools will actually mandate, well, I shouldn't say that. Some schools will actually could encourage you to do that or to state that you should do that. So what I would look at Bridgewater State University. Their social media page is pretty top notch. Ed Cabellon has done a really great job with the institution's social media there. And Bridgewater State, they have a 12-page, it might be a little bit longer, social media policy. It's pretty detailed. But what's really cool about theirs is their guide that they give out to all their departments is available online. And you can actually check that out for yours to see. They break down social media accounts, how to open them, how to manage them, which we'll talk about here in a second. They'll talk about strategies and tips. And so their website and some of the information they have is pretty, it's pretty top notch. And so I would encourage you, again, Bridgewater State University, and that's in Massachusetts, to look them up and to sort of model off of them, and to look at the great work that they're doing around social media and how they, started small and now it's really big. And you can kind of see for your department, university, where do we start and how do we grow that in a really manageable way. So I'm going to screen share with you a document that I'm happy to share with you if you want to email me at any time. This is a really basic social media strategy plan template. And what I would suggest you doing, for many of you, you want to use social media in your office or get started, or maybe that Facebook page is kind of stagnant and hasn't done much movement, or you have a Twitter account with 6 followers, like you're really trying to increase that stuff. I would really challenge yourself to use a plan like this or something out there similar before you even get started. So many times we're sitting in meetings and people will be like, let's do social media. What does that mean? Like, I don't even know what that means. Like, let's do social media. Okay, well, that makes sense, but like, well, why are we doing it? What platforms are we going to do? Who's going to manage it? There's so much more than just saying, let's do social media before you get out there. You certainly don't want to open up accounts, open up pages or groups without any forethought, because they will just go stagnant. And so putting some thought into it before you get started would be really important with a couple people or even yourself to use this strategy plan just to quickly jot down some ideas. So the part 1 is looking at your mission and values of your department or the program or event that you want to use social media for. And so thinking about, what is our mission? What are we about? What are we trying to focus on? So you keep that in the forefront of your mind as you use social media. The second thing would be, what are our goals? So when someone says, let's do social media, well, what are our goals of using social media? So is it creating interest, creating relationships, sharing a download or a document, gathering ideas or feedback? It could be one of those or something different, but really thinking critically about why we're doing this and what's the goal in the end. And you want to be able to assess it. So then you would look at what platforms will we use to accomplish those goals. Where's the attendant audience? So with this, it might be that Facebook is because we know that's where our parents are, the parents of our students are, or the guardians and families are. So we want to use Facebook. I would have you look at Fort Hays State University in Kansas. They're doing some really great parent relations with YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter chats. And so they have a really good connection with that stakeholder group. The blog is a big one as well. That's a great way to have students publish their a day in the life of a student at Iowa State, the day in the life of the president or staff members. And you can post their picture, a 2 or 3 synopsis of what's happening, and the blog allows you just to have more of a space to do that. And what's great about blog posts is they can be translated very easily to Facebook, obviously a link on your Twitter account, all of those things to get them to those new spaces. And YouTube is another one where you're able to do live hangouts with incoming first year students. So maybe you have a group of students who can't travel in, or for some reason aren't making a session, or maybe you just want to do it online because that's kind of the hip thing to do. You could post it on YouTube, have a YouTube channel. Maybe it's tours of your residence halls. It's the do's and don'ts of what to bring to move in. do-it-yourself projects. So taking Pinterest almost and doing some of those projects. A lot of departments have Pinterest pages. I don't have that listed, but Pinterest could be a platform that could serve your purpose as well. Again, the YouTube, any of the videos, they're popular, right? They're quick to watch. They're fun. I can do it from my phone. I can do it from a computer or an iPad. And it allows you to engage with individuals and for them to kind of see and get a feel for campus before they even set foot on it. So I would, again, look at what platforms are going to be best to fit your goals. Then you're looking at management. So I think the one thing we forget about with social media, and probably the one thing there's a lot of hesitation around, is just the resources that it takes to implement social media effectively. And this is where picking 1 to 3 platforms is really essential as a department. And I would say 1 for the first 6 months, and then the next semester or 6 months, you do a second one. So do really well at 1 platform before you open up 3. Because remember, the more you open up, the more staff and time and resources to manage 3 different accounts. Because what you post on Facebook shouldn't be the same thing that you post on Twitter and your Instagram all in the same moment. Because probably they're connected on all 3. So you want to make sure the content that you're doing is different. So content management with your engagement is the next piece. How often will you do this? Who will monitor, post, and answer? And then what programs should you use to organize and plan out your content? So how often? People always ask, like, what are the times to post and how often do you do it? Eric Qualman, who's an author of this great book, a lot of the student affairs professionals are in, talks about that, he, in his presentation, 5 to 10 minutes a day is all you really need to invest to create that presence. And so maybe it's 1 or 2 posts a day that you're doing. And it's changing based on the platform itself. And so I'm going to share with you another screen. So this would be a simple diagram of how to manage multiple accounts should you have them. So you might have Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Instagram. I manage the WISA account through NASPA, through Women in Student Affairs, and we have 3 people and we rotate 1 week at a time. And so that might be something for your office if you have multiple people that can help with you, is to say, like, each week someone's assigned to sort of updating, monitoring, answering questions. That way it doesn't feel like it's cumbersome if it's not your full-time job, because it can become a full-time job. In this, you'll see that here I have, so on one day, on Mondays, I would encourage, maybe what's happening this week in the hall. So I'm sorry, this is kind of residence life-based, but if it's residence halls here, then maybe on Twitter, it's Motivation Monday, so it's more of a question or a quote or something that you're trying to engage your followers with. On Pinterest, it might be a new tip or decorating on one of your boards. LinkedIn, this might be something that you don't have to update all the time, but maybe you want to go in every Monday and congratulate students who got jobs, or people who are posting accomplishments, or just checking out to make sure that you're not missing anyone who's trying to connect with you. And then Instagram might be photos from the previous weekend of happenings. So maybe each one of your halls submits a photo that you can post as like a way to celebrate. Students love to see themselves online. So you could post photos here. And that's usually what they'll share and they'll tag is things, pictures of people is what they love to share, or videos. So this is one day that you could share and see how it's different content on each one platform. If one person's following you on Facebook, they're probably going to follow you on Twitter and then Instagram. So posting the same photo on all 3 is sort of a waste of time, and they might unfollow you on one of the accounts, because if it's ever new content or different, why would I look? Because they're looking at all 3 as they're walking to class scrolling. They may continue to say, well, I already saw that, and have no interest. So I would mix up a little bit. And these are really great to build out weeks at a time. Maybe you have some certain weeks that are down, so you can go in and kind of fill in your chart, if you will. And then then you could look at a Hootsuite or a TweetDeck. Those are program schedulers that you could actually schedule out Facebook and Twitter. And Instagram actually is increasing their capabilities as well, where you could post out things at weeks, days, months ahead of time. I can't remember. I want to say it's 180 days out. I mean, it's a good chunk of time out that you could schedule these posts. So that's just one example of how to manage your social media accounts. And then this also helps you too if you have students. So managing social media takes, time, money, and people resources. The money part really comes in if it's, you're paying a student worker. Maybe we're not even going to talk today about how you can boost posts, but if we went into part 2, we could talk about the boosting posts and getting more traction. But that's something to think about. But that time and the people resources are really critical to making this effective. And as Amanda asked one of her questions, she goes, how do I keep up with everybody else who's trying to get a student's attention. How do we kind of keep up with that, you know? And one way to do that, I think, is being really solid in the 1 or 2 accounts that you're going to say, we're going to own these 2 accounts. Like, we're going to do really good stuff with these 2 accounts. And if those go well over a period of time, we'll maybe add in a second or a third platform. So let's see, stop the share. All right, so now you've kind of figured out how you want to manage your platform. So who will monitor, post, answer? So I get the question a lot about student involvement with posting. When you have those screens like I showed you previously and you have it mapped out, it's really easy for them to update the content. Or they can actually fill in that, what they think should be the content, and you can approve it. So that's where you have that approval opportunity to involve students in your monitoring and your posting. And then, you know, I think the biggest thing too is this thing here, the assessment piece. This is really important to think about, well, what worked. Each site has analytics that are free. You can pay for more, but there are really great quick analytics that can be used. Twitter, there's a feature right on the bottom of Twitter that looks like a little graph. You click on that, it'll tell you exactly what your where your message, how many engagements it's had, how many reshares, and that's a quick assessment that you can keep track of. A student worker could easily go into a spreadsheet and say, oh, we've had 6 new followers this week, and we've had this many engagements. And so you could keep track of that over time to see how you're doing. And the other thing that people always think about is, well, when's the best time to post? Well, over a week's time, when did you have the most traction? Well, it's like at 9 o'clock at night when students were leaving their dining hall and going to their rooms. And it looks like about 2 in the morning, there's some good high traffic. So maybe at 2 in the morning, you have a post that pops up. I will say this is my big caveat. If you schedule posts out, you need to be sure that if your campus goes through a campus tragedy, the country's having a tragedy, there's a storm or a big event that's making national news, that you don't have this like motivational Monday quote that's like all like rainbows and stars and like happiness, and when there's something tragic happening on your campus, and it might think that you might get the wrong brand for your department, that you're not sensitive to what's happening either locally or nationally because of your message. And so being really critical when you have those scheduled tweets and posts on Facebook, knowing what's out there and what's going to be out there based on what's happening on your campus. And so you might have to go quickly in and delete something so it doesn't pop up and people think, wow, the campus activities office isn't really aware of what just happened last night with University Police because they're posting about their event right now was conflicting with another event. So something to think about when you are using the scheduler. It's a great tool. That's the only downside to the scheduler. So I know we're getting close to our wrap-up time, and so what I would like to do is just give you a couple more quick tips, a few more tips, if you will, about social media. Keeping it short and simple. Eric in here talks about it as well in the book. I think it's, keep it short and simple is the KISS acronym. Really important that it doesn't take much, and you don't want to put too much lengthiness into a post because people will get bored. So remember, they're scrolling through on a phone most likely, so keep it short and simple. Post regularly and often, so making sure your accounts don't stay stagnant is really important, that you are refreshing and that you're answering people's questions. If you're going to have a Twitter account, you're going to have a Facebook post where people can comment in and you don't answer, a student's going to get frustrated. They're not going to follow you anymore. You've lost that connection, or they're going to be frustrated like, hey, I tweeted it to you at, last night at 11 p.m. Well, it's not really an account that gets checked at 11 p.m. So you need to let students know in your description of your accounts how this account is monitored. What time is it monitored? Who is it monitored by? Sometimes what you'll have is people who might be monitoring an account might cite each message with their initials. So then you also know if you have students answering questions of other students that you know who gave that response. And so again, it helps us out with that control feature. There's a difference between organic content and recycled content. So you don't want all recycled content, meaning you don't want all you do is just retweet other people's stuff or just constantly sharing stuff. You want to make sure that you have organic stuff that you're creating yourself as well. And that goes back to the quotes, the questions, the trivia contest that you can run to these accounts, give out some free swag. Whatever you need to do to create a welcome mat to your office through social media is really the goal. So you want students to still visit your office. I think some hesitation with social media is that, well, if we're always on social media, they'll never come to my office. Well, then create the opposite. Have some contests where it's like, did you see this post? Come pick up this prize in our office. Come get a free chip for a coffee or whatever your campus has as incentives to get them into your office. The social media piece is just one piece of the larger puzzle. That one-to-one connection is not going to be and cannot be replaced by social media and shouldn't be. It's just a tool to use to further the engagement. So be authentic, show your human side of your office. It's great to have maybe have some fun photos, some bios of people. Maybe it's fun hat day and everyone's wearing a hat in your office. Just little things that show that you're human and that you have a fun side, some humor, and then laugh. If you make a mistake, if someone has an error, there's a spelling error or something happened, be lighthearted about it. Oops, we messed up. We all make mistakes. You can also use that as a way to show your humor. It sells. Contest events equals more followers equals more connections. So there are ways for you to increase that followership with contests. The first 50 people that follow us get a slice of pizza. We're gonna do a drawing for a thing. If you comment back, maybe it's a trivia question, or it's when is our applications due, things like that. You could put out there as well. And I would say that pictures still say 1,000 words. So pictures are always a great tool. I will share with you the app. It's, I think, 99 cents on Android and iPhone. It's called Over, O-V-E-R. And it's a great way that you can take a photo or a graphic and basically make an advertisement or a photo that's social media friendly. So it creates, you might even advertise an event that you take a picture of the artist, time and date it, and then put it out there really quickly. So Over is a great app to create social media friendly digital, quick shares. I want to make sure that the last thing I'm going to leave you with is the final question from Amanda, and thanks, Amanda, for all your questions. She just said, what is the best way to keep in touch with the current generation of students when my drive for social media is lacking, and just talking about just how we get a little overwhelmed with social media. And that's, great question. I think it's a hard one to answer in some ways because we have to, not everyone's drive wants to be on social media, and it doesn't have to be. So what I would do is, if anything, I would just have conversations with the students who you interact with about where are they at on social media? How do they use it? How do they see their peers use it? And that's how you keep up with them. Just asking questions, normally like you would do. So if you have one-on-ones with students, throw a social media question in there. Ask them what they're, what have they seen that's positive and negative this week? Try to learn from them and let their teacher, let them show you how a platform works, and, reverse the roles a little bit in that learning environment. And, remember, we can learn from our students every day too. And this is one way to engage with them, to say, oh, I haven't heard of that app. Can you show me that? Oh yeah, sure. And they get really excited because they get to show you something that they're using on a daily basis. And so I would reach out to to the students and just, I think, if you're an article reader, maybe you challenge yourself that once a week you're going to find a social media article in higher education. So Inside Higher Ed is a great one. They have a whole technology focused part to it. That might just enable you to learn about what's happening on other campuses around social media. What are we seeing with trends? I would say that when we think about incidences like Mizzou, when we think about Ferguson, we think about Black Lives Matter, those are movements and things that you can just follow on social media, because that's where your students are at. They're the ones talking about it, and that's probably where they're sharing a lot of their information. We had an unfortunate incident at SUNY Albany that happened over the weekend that you may have seen in the news, where 3 women of color were attacked on a bus by some 10 to 12 white student individuals headed onto campus. Horrific incident, and the student tweeted everything out. One of the students that was attacked tweeted out her whole story and posted it for everyone to see, and that's what made it go viral. And that's where the students are at. That's what they're using as a communication tool, and in some ways, they're trying to get help. So you might be finding students who are trying to reach out in those mediums to get help. And that's why it's important to sort of not maybe have a drive for social media in a way of broadcasting your news and promoting your events and all of that. Because posters may still work for your campus. Old school word of mouth still may work for your campus. But to be in touch with the generation of students is about knowing what they're putting out there and what they're talking about through the social media platforms that they're on. So I would say that is so much information in about 40 minutes. You can follow me at @mwyett, W-Y-E-T-T. You can drop me an email anytime. I love having these conversations. And what I love about the work that I do with this, because I keep it really simple, is that just to have the what's working for you and what's not working for you. if you're, again, interested, there's lots of people out there doing some great work around digital leadership, digital education, and we can connect you with those individuals if you want to expand this conversation as well. But I think the biggest thing is just get out there, do it, look around, lurk around for a little bit, and just slowly integrate a platform at a time into your life. And I'll tell you this, social media is not going away. It's only going to increase as our colleges get a little more online and we get more and more students. You're going to need to be connected on social media in some variety, or at least just have the language and the knowledge about social media platforms in use. So, get out there and just and slow yourself into it, integrate it. So thanks, everyone. I really appreciate your time. I hope that you've learned something and had a couple takeaways today. Anything you want to say to wrap up?
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate you doing this, and I hope our viewers now and those after who will be viewing this will get a lot from it. And hopefully they will message you or tweet you once they've added their Twitter accounts as well.
Yes. And I realized I was on share for most of that thing. So hopefully you now all have that worksheet down pat. So, all right, everyone, take care. And hopefully I see you in Montreal in just a month.
Thanks.